can't hear you.
Καλησπέρα από εμάς στο New York College. Καλώς ήρθατε και στο σημερινό σεμινάριο, το οποίο διεξάγεται με πολύ ιδιαίτερες συνθήκες λόγω της κακοκαιρίας, η οποία πλήττει την Αττική. Η μέρα, όπως βλέπετε, είναι ολόλευκη, μια πάρα πολύ όμορφη μέρα, όπου η φύση μας έχει χαρίσει απλόχερα μαγευτικά τοπία, τα οποία, αν θέλετε, μας ηρεμούν κιόλας και ίσως εν μέρει μας φτιάχνουν και τη διάθεση. Σήμερα είναι μια πάρα πολύ ξεχωριστή μέρα, καθώς η σημερινή μας εισηγήτρια είναι μια πολύ εκλεκτή συνεργάτης του εκπαιδευτικού οργανισμού New York College. Είναι η κυρία Lindy McMullin, η οποία είναι ψυχολόγος, έχει μεταπτυχιακές σπουδές στον τομέα transpersonal psychology, δηλαδή στην διαπροσωπική ψυχολογία, στο consciousness studies, και επίσης είναι διδάκτορ στο αντικείμενο εκπαιδευτική ψυχολογία, το λεγόμενο εξωτερικό και educational psychology. Πρέπει όμως να πω ότι στο κολέγιό μας η κυρία McMullin συμβάλλει και σε έναν άλλον τομέα, όπου είναι η επίβλεψη διδακτορικών διατριβών σε συνεργασία με ένα πολύ μεγάλο πανεπιστήμιο του εξωτερικού, το University of Bolton, το οποίο βρίσκεται στη Μεγάλη Βρετανία. Είναι μια πάρα πολύ εκλεκτή συνεργάτης με σημαντική εμπειρία στον τομέα της ψυχολογίας όλα τα χρόνια, και το σημερινό μας σεμινάριο είναι το Mindfulness, from theory to practice, δηλαδή από τη θεωρία στην πράξη. Και το Mindfulness στα ελληνικά είναι κάτι το οποίο αποδίδουμε με τον όρο, αν το λέω καλά, ενσυνειδητότητα. Όπως λοιπόν θα έχετε δει, η ομιλία θα λάβει μέρος σήμερα στα αγγλικά από την εκλεκτή συνάδελφο, και οποιαδήποτε ερώτηση θέλετε μπορείτε να μας την απευθύνετε είτε στο chat στο YouTube, είτε στο email sciencecafe@nyc.gr. So, Linda, I think that I have said a lot, so it's a very good time for you to start your speech, and I'm sure that you're going to have very interesting things to say tonight.
Thank you, Costa. And good evening from me to all of our listeners, and a warm welcome to New York College Athens Wellness Cafe. Before we begin, I would like to invite you to get comfortable. We've had a beautiful day today in Athens with lots of snow, and I think that perhaps some of us are a little bit more rested, some of us perhaps not. But I just really would like to ask you to stop whatever else you might be doing and just to give yourself this short time to be. Truly give yourself permission to become fully present to this moment and the opportunity that is being given to us. So before I begin, I would like you to take a few moments to write down on a piece of paper what is currently worrying you, what is creating stress and tension in your life. Just allow, without thinking very much, to give space to your ideas and just write it down on a piece of paper. I will give you some time. It is important for you to jot these things down, because at the end of this workshop, we'll be asking you a question related to it. So I'll just leave you a few moments to list your worries. And it will just be in silence, which is an important part as well of being in this space, no matter that we are online and not at the college. So when you finish writing down what is worrying you, I'd like you to fold up your piece of paper and just set it aside. And let go of the stress, of the tension, and whatever you have written on your piece of paper. And now, because we are in a wellness cafe, I would like to invite you to mindfully attend a Japanese tea ceremony with me. The tea ceremony is called Sado in Japanese.
Can you spell it? Sado.
Yes.
S-A-D-O.
S-A-D-O. It is a choreographic ritual of preparing and serving Japanese green tea called matcha, together with traditional Japanese sweets to balance with the bitter taste of the tea. So this is an exercise where your imagination is going to carry you, as I speak, to the idea of attending a Japanese tea ceremony, wonderful Japanese green tea, and sweets to balance with the bitter taste. Preparing tea in this ceremony means pouring all one's attention into the predefined movements. The whole process is not actually about drinking the tea, but it is more about the aesthetics, about preparing a bowl of tea from one's heart. The host of the ceremony always considers the guests with each movement and gesture. Even the placement of the tea utensils is considered from the guest's point of view. So we're truly lucky and honored to be present in this ceremony. A typical Japanese room is a place where the atmosphere is conducive to serenity of mind, where art may be appreciated without distraction. Communication with nature is expected of those about to enter the tea room, and the procession is silent, for the guest's serenity of mind is not to be disturbed. As we approach the tea room, we come to a point where there is a stone basin, close by a stone lantern. The basin, which is filled with water, is a washing place provided for the guests to purify themselves before entering the tea room. The basin is the most important part of the garden path, and where the guests are supposed to be capable of appreciating the painstaking ingenuity of the artist in his arrangement of rocks, trees, and water. There is beauty in this silence. Each guest kneels in front of the tokonoma, which is the alcove, and looks reverently at the kakemono. There is nothing gorgeous or magnificent in this room, but a careful observer will discover that all things that are there are so placed as to set one another off. And only a true Chai Yin knows how to entertain his guests with just a twig of the camellia, having one bud half open and a few leaves in a small vase, which is severely plain. In an atmosphere that is conducive to restfulness and calm, we, the guests, may listen to the soughing of the wind in the pines as the music of the boiling water is poetically called. The host is, of course, proud of his kettle and hearth. Each of us, as a guest, must be capable of appreciating the artistic design of the antique kettle, or of discovering a subtle charm in the wooden framework of the hearth, as well as the aroma of the brewing tea. Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher and writer, and reputed author of the Tao Te Ching, tells us that a quiet mind is the deep pool that reflects everything that crosses it without distortion. And no mind is the mind that is quiet when it is to itself as if it wasn't there. This is not a negative quietness or an exclusive quietness that rejects the ordinary things that we do in our daily business. Those things can come and go. And the quiet mind is perfectly happy. Why is the quiet mind perfectly happy? Because there is a normality of perfect functioning, a normality of actualized potential, and a normality of nature in fullest flower. And the reason that the mind is quiet is because everything is as it is, for that is how it is. I shall repeat that sentence, and I hope that in my repetition it touches you somewhere deep down inside, because this, to me, is the essence of having a quiet mind. Everything is as it is, for that is how it is in the now. The normality has nothing to do with the observed behavior of the greatest number, for the greatest number live and have always lived with their potentials unrealized, their nature denied its full development. And this is the reason why I'm inviting you into the house of mindfulness, not to learn mindfulness as a quick technique, but to realize that mindfulness is a way of life that supports and assists us to remain calm when everything around us may well be pressurizing. For we know that everything is as it is, for that is how it is. For me as a practitioner and teacher of mindfulness, it's of utmost importance not to present mindfulness without its roots. A root I take to be of great importance. Hence why I invited you into a Japanese tea ceremony, just to bring some calm into the space of where you were and where you have come. Eastern sages have carried out a very detailed mapping of the human mind and states of consciousness that is by far more precise than what psychology has attempted to do in the West. And here we are talking about a tradition that goes back to Siddhartha Gautama, not as a religious figure at all, but rather as an enlightened human being. So when mindfulness came to the West from the East, it came as a practice that had been introduced by Kabat-Zinn, John Kabat-Zinn in Massachusetts, to assist patients with chronic pain. Kabat-Zinn himself had spent time in the East and had been trained in mindfulness. So when he returned to Massachusetts, he brought it into the hospital there, where patients were in severe pain. Mindfulness has since become extremely popular because research on mindfulness can be carried out very, very well. And the results are very encouraging. And so it has been introduced into schools and hospitals, amongst other. For me, however, the value of mindfulness cannot be underestimated, especially when it is connected to its rich background. Something that is at times lost when we become very scientific, we tend to forget the indigenous traditions and the very powerful work that has been done in the past. And like every tree needs to remain stable and strong, without its roots, it should simply be blown away by the wind. It is extremely important for the practice of mindfulness, I think, to explore a little bit of its background. Princess Gautama, having learned through her own grim experience of the inadequacy of all forms of traditional religious teaching and practice, saying that I'm not at all following the idea that one should, if one so believes, not carry on believing, confronted the truth of the human condition as it is, objectively and independently, without any doctrinal intermediary. He disregarded traditional yogas, austerities, and meditations that were being carried out at the time, and sought a possible solution to his spiritual predicament on its own terms. Although the situation looked hopeless through persistent reflection, he discovered in the depths of his mind the special insight he had been looking for, and that later evolved into Buddhism. Now, in the 12th century AD, 1,000 years after its origins, Chan, the Chinese form of Buddhism, reached Japan, where it began to evolve into what we now know of as Zen. Without going into too much detail about Zen, I would just like to say that Zen is very much a supreme experience, because Zen does not refer to a single teaching or a single spiritual practice. And it is practiced by people who come from diverse religious and spiritual backgrounds. At its core is the story of a person's everyday experience in an ongoing manifestation of enlightenment and a confirmation of it. For one of the paths that are within Zen believe that we are all enlightened beings. We have just not awoken to this fact. Zen is both something that you do, a disciplined practice through which you can realize the joy of being, and something that you are in your true nature. And this is the key point from which we are going to embark today. through becoming present to this and only this moment in time, we realize that our connectedness is with each other, no matter that we cannot see each other. Quite naturally, in the process of becoming present, we come to care for the environment, starting with our own actions. As well, we understand that every act has a consequence, and that life is understood to be precious, as is the breath that affords life. Now, I would like not to go into too much detail about the breath that affords life, but at this moment in time, I think that it is appropriate just to recall how many people around us worldwide are struggling at this very moment with breath. Breath affords life. So I would invite you now to this present moment to practice sitting with me. If you're sitting on a chair, make sure that your feet are flat on the floor and your spine straight as it can be, or if it is more comfortable for you, you can sit on a cushion on the floor in lotus style so that your head is straight, your chin pulled in just enough to elongate the cervical spine, and your ears perpendicular to your shoulders. Your left hand rests in the palm of the right hand, palms facing up, and the thumbs barely touch at the tips, forming a circle. They rest as you sit. You may lower and rest your gaze gently on the floor in front of you, or you may close your eyes. Allow your attention to flow to your breath, just softly, silently, and naturally. Breathe through your nose, paying attention to the full duration of each exhalation. You are inhaling and you are exhaling. Keep your breath natural, silent, and soft. Just pay attention to this breath. Now bring your attention a little bit down to your belly. And just focus on the rise and the fall of your belly as you breathe. Your breath comes in through your nostrils. It fills your lungs and out again. And your belly rises and falls as you breathe. Just stay with the breath as the bridge connecting life to consciousness, uniting the body with the breath. Just stay following your breath. If your mind wanders, that is quite okay. Allow it to wander and bring back your attention to your breath as it flows in and as it flows out. Just following your breath. You may breathe in a long breath. And you may breathe in a shorter breath. And breathing in a long breath, just following your breath, just connecting with your breath. A sacred in and out breath that affords you life. Just follow your breath. Become this breath. Honor this breath. Stay with your breath. Just allow it to be in the now as it is, rising and falling. Just experiencing the breath. Just following this breath. And I'm going to use the gong when it is time for you to open your eyes. So in the interim, just follow your breath. You can follow your breath through your body, down to your feet, and up again. You can follow your breath into each cell of your body. You may follow your breath into each organ of your body. And just again now return to the simplicity of the breath as it enters into your nostrils, moves down into your lungs and out again. I suggest that you keep your eyes closed or you allow the sound of the gong to run through your body and only to open your eyes after the third. So what I suggest that you do right now is that you jot down anything that you want to ask a question about at the end of the presentation. Just something that you might feel at this moment. Just take a few minutes to jot down on a piece of paper how you're feeling.
I'll leave you 2 or 3 minutes in order to take down some notes about your feelings. Αν αφήσουμε 2-3 λεπτά ίσως και λίγο παραπάνω να γράψουν οι τηλεθεατές μας κάποια συναισθήματα τα οποία βιώσανε μέσα από αυτή τη διαδικασία.
Ακριβώς.
Μπορείτε να μας στέλνετε είτε στο mail είτε στο sciencecafe@nyc.gr είτε στο chat μας στο YouTube και θα τα μεταφέρουμε στη συνάδελφο.
And then we will carry on with the second part.
Kindness with the white color of snow. Ηρεμία με το άσπρο χρώμα του χιονιού. Because when it's snowing, there is total quiet outside.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is a deep
There is nothing.
stillness. Yes.
It's like nature has stopped everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I can slowly go on.
Mm-hmm.
So I invite you to experience that everything is in your mind, and your mind is in everything. Everything has a place and is perfect in itself. So the idea in mindfulness is that nothing remains to be done when we are in the practice of mindfulness. Nothing can be added to or subtracted from this perfection. The 7 pillars of mindfulness basically have to do with beginning everything with complete innocence, a beginner's mind, having no preconceptions, And if there are preconceptions, that is okay. Perhaps the mind is saying, now what is all this about? That's okay. Let it say what it has to say. Remain in beginner's mind. Trust.
If I can say something.
Important, yes.
We have from our friends on chat, Nicole is speaking about nostalgia, calmness, and meekness, praotita. Amelie is also, she's saying that she felt relieved hearing the gong. Elleria speaks about serenity, freedom of spirit. Georgia about calmness. And Elenzina, she felt unexpectedly relaxed and as well as a sense of freedom. Wonderful. With the whole procedure.
Wonderful. So we have good comments and we can have a discussion later, Kostas. Let's keep them for later on with our questions so that I can go along with the 7 pillars of mindfulness in terms of trust, patience. You need to be patient because your mind will bring all sorts of different ideas to you. Acceptance, letting go, non-striving, and non-judgment. I just want to talk a little bit about non-judgment in terms of the fact that we are continuously judging ourselves. We are continuously labeling how we feel, whether it is good or whether it is inappropriate. The idea of mindfulness is to accept the emotions that one feels, to accept everything as it is, and not to try at that moment to change what one experiences. So letting go, allowing is an important aspect. And the reason why I'm going over the pillars of mindfulness is that we will have another exercise within this time. And I want you to be able to compare it to the first exercise that you did after knowing about the 7 pillars of mindfulness, which again, I go over are beginner's mind, trust, patience, acceptance, letting go, non-striving, and non-judgment. There is only present time. And in this present time, we are in an inner, silent space. So the experience of mindfulness seems to testify to the reality of a presence that is beyond the ordinary, which somehow connects, as it were, the ordinary self to a very much greater self. Even nature itself. So it's very important to be able to connect with nature, to connect with whatever we are doing at the time that we are doing. We are so used to multitask. We are so used to doing too many things at the same time. So mindfulness calls us to actually experience something in its fullest. And in the case of practicing the breath, it's the rising and the falling of the breath, the ascending and the descending, which brings, as it were, calm to the inner being of a still and silent lake, in which one can rest indefinitely, as though in a small boat, warm and safe, conscious of clouds that pass by, but not needing to follow them at all. The clouds represent our thoughts, and we tend to follow them. The psychology of mindful transformation suggests that we may return and become again that which, in fact, we have always been. So becoming present suggests that there's nothing at all to do apart from remaining present and focused on what it is that we are doing. It suggests interconnectedness, a unity of a group of humans, all present to this moment of wellness, concerned with nothing at all apart from the breath that affords life, and recognizing at this moment the value of this breath. And for me, that is extremely important right now. An understanding that all that is necessary in your everyday life is to greet each day with respect and gratitude, and to be present to everything that you do, so that your mind becomes tame without your needing to tame it. The idea in Zen and mindfulness is not that you chase after trying to tame your mind, trying to focus, trying not to think. That is not the way. The way is to just accept the mind with its many scenarios going on, and to train yourself to focus on the breath. Eventually, the mind, with all its scenarios, will stop. It will become much more silent by itself. So if you feel overwhelmed during this period of time, identify the emotion that you are experiencing. Accept that emotion. It can be sadness, it can be fear. Accept it, no matter what it is. Just accept it. It is the thought that we have about the emotion that is damaging, not the emotion. Just give it some space. Perhaps hold it, that emotion. Try as much as possible to stop and notice what is going on around you. If you're taking a walk, become conscious of how your body feels, what your muscles are doing. If you're washing the dishes, become conscious of the feel of the plate and the warmy soap water on your hands. If you are in nature, connect with the wind and take in the beauty of what surrounds you. Listen deeply to the birds singing. Notice the rough texture of the bark of the tree. Become present. If you are listening, listen deeply and actively. Bring empathy and understanding into your communication with self and other. Become fully present as much as possible to the now, not living in the past and not wondering about the future, because, believe it or not, neither exist unless you bring them into present time with you. Be conscious that your mind is full of patterned scenarios that threaten during times of stress to storm or to simply hover like clouds overhead, literally challenging you to become part of their drama. Your challenge is to remain the observer, or hanging on to a cloud that is just another scenario that has been spun by your mind. Because when you realize that you follow the pattern of the scenario, your thought goes and travels out. Just bring it back. Rest in the moment, conscious that all is exactly what it is. It is what it is. striving to think that it should be different, is the thought that you were invited to observe, rather than chasing after it to spin more scenarios around it. So try as much as possible just to let go and simply be. You can breathe deeply and remain focused on breath, or you can breathe deeply and let go of your focus on your breath and focus on a word like gratitude. You can repeat to yourself as a mantra inside of you, I am grateful, I am grateful, I am grateful. Gratitude, grateful, gratitude. Or you can focus on a word like love, or a word like peace. You may repeat a few words of a prayer, focusing on the essence of the word and filling your entire being with this essence. I guarantee that you will feel better if you do. Now, I want to invite you to stretch your arms high above your head. Just stretch your arms high above your head. Feel your arm muscles, your shoulders. Lean your head back. Stretch your neck muscles. Move your head slowly to the right, to the left. Perhaps flex your legs a little bit, scrunch up your toes. Just move your body. And take in a deep breath. And just jot down 1 or 2 words as to how you feel at this moment in time. Just jot them down on a piece of paper or jot them down somewhere so that you can return to them later when we will ask you to answer the question. So just going to give you 2 minutes to write down 2 words, not more than 2 words, after you have moved your body as to how you feel. And we are going to go into a practice of a second mindfulness practice. So just settle again. And what I would like to suggest is that you close your eyes now and just become aware of the chair that you're sitting on and your feet on the floor. Just relax your entire body. Perhaps take note to see, where is your body stressed? Is it stressed in your shoulders? Is it stressed in your arms? Just follow your breath as you relax your body. Allow your breath to deepen and touch those parts of your body that may be tense. So just breathe, conscious that you are making contact with your body. And just mindfully become aware and allow your body to speak to you. What does your body have to say to you? Is your body tired? What does your body want? Be willing to listen deeply. Take note of areas where you are tense. Focus on the muscles in your right calf. Relax these muscles and breathe into them. Focus on your left calf and mindfully become aware of it. And your feet as they sit on the floor. Try to elongate your spine as much as you can so that it is straight. And breathe into your spine. Breathe into your chest, focusing in on your chest. Trust this moment and just be grateful for your body. And be grateful for your breath. And just be grateful. And then you can open your eyes and just check in with how you feel. I would like just to add here that many studies of mindfulness to date have reported on correlations between self-reported mindfulness and psychological health. There are a number of studies that have been done. Mindfulness practice is usually taught in the Western world as it is taught without its Eastern aspect over a period of 8 weeks. Participants are encouraged to engage in home mindfulness exercises, practices, to break free from habitual and maladaptive patterns of thinking and behavior. Early encephalogram studies have found that individuals who meditated showed persistent alpha activity with restful reductions in the metabolic rate. This is Anand, Chinna, and Singh, Bachi and Wenger, Wallace, Kasamatsu, and Hirai. There is an increase in theta waves, which reflect lower states of arousal associated with sleep. Towards the end, we will show you a picture of the brain before and after. Mindfulness is theoretically and empirically associated with well-being. And the elements of mindfulness, which are basically awareness and non-judgmental acceptance of one's moment-to-moment experience, are known to be effective antidotes against common forms of psychological distress like rumination, anxiety, worry, fear, anger, and so on. So the orientation to the experience concerns the kind of attitude one holds towards one's experience, especially an attitude of curiosity, openness, and acceptance. And it is worth noting here that acceptance in the context of mindfulness should not be equated with a passivity or a resignation. Just want to mention that. Acceptance refers to the ability to experience events fully without resorting to either extreme of excessive preoccupation with or suppression of an experience, because it is usually in that we have problems. There is mindfulness-based stress reduction, which has been associated with brain changes, reflective of positive emotional states, adaptive self-representation and emotion. There are increases in the left frontal activation, which is indicative of dispositional and positive effect, and increased activation in brain regions implicated in experiential, present-focused modes, Mindfulness is used basically in terms of children who have ADHD, who have difficulty concentrating. It has been shown to be related to measures of psychological health using functional neuroimaging methods. It is used for patients who are suffering from pain, chronic pain. Creswell, Eisenberg, and Lieberman found that trait mindfulness was associated with reduced bilateral amygdala activation and a greater widespread prefrontal cortical activation during an effective labeling task. So we are talking about an empirically sound practice. We are talking about a practice that has helped numerous people feel better in terms of their depression, not only in adults, but in children with learning disorders. Carrying out mindfulness has reduced their problems. We have mindfulness-based cognitive therapy that was initiated by Siegel, Williams, and Teasdale. There is dialectical behavioral therapy that uses the Zen mindfulness that was developed by Linehan in 1993, and acceptance and commitment therapy. Radical acceptance of what each of us has to accept, our past, the present, and realistic limitations on the future. We learn skills to tolerate distress without impulsively or destructively reducing it. People who practice mindfulness tend to be able to feel more empathy for others. They are compassionate, and they are able to understand the meaning of kindness. And remaining in present time do bring change to those around them because they increase the level of consciousness. There are actual changes in the brain that we are going to show you. I have a few pointers that I just want to share with you before I end. Half smile when you first wake up in the morning. Half smile when you listen to music. Half smile when you are irritated. Every now and then, stop what you're doing at the computer and check to see how you are breathing. Take 1 moment to do it. And perhaps ask whoever is on the other side of your computer to join you, as I did here this evening. When you take a walk, measure your breath by your footsteps. Mindfully wash the dishes and mindfully make your tea and your coffee. And then look at it, smell it. But most of all, remember that everything that we do, if we do it, looking at the sacredness and honoring the essence of who and what we are as human beings, we will be able to support each other no matter what is happening, and to move on, always present and always with a half smile on our face, and always able to focus on breath and not to lash out at others or to the self, and so improve in our psychological well-being. I will end with a bow towards you but I'm still present because I hope that we can have a little bit of a discussion. And I would ask Costa if you could show our listeners the picture that shows them how their brain shifts and changes after 10 minutes of mindfulness.
Like 1 or 2 minutes because the internet is going too slow.
Yes, of course.
Today.
That's
I have to download it once more from my email because the first file does not work properly. So, in the meantime, I have to say two things. Eleni is saying that mindfulness is used for anorexia nervosa therapy.
Yes, it is. Mindfulness is being used for anorexia nervosa. It is used for people who are suffering from bulimia nervosa. It is used for a number of psychological problems and disturbances and different mood disorders, etc. That is why it is even being used in DBT, which deals with rather severe cases of people who are prone to move towards suicide.
So give me a second. This is the meditating brain. Είναι ο εγκέφαλος ενός ανθρώπου ο οποίος κάνει διαλογισμό. So, Lindy, what could we say about this procedure, about the benefits for our health and our brain?
The benefits are tremendous, and I have mentioned a lot of them. Basically, in general, I think it becomes a way of life. That's why I'm saying it's not a technique. It is something that needs to be practiced, and it is extremely beneficial in all areas. If we can look here, we can see the brain before and after a 10-minute meditation. It is really essential that the brain, what we see basically is that parts of the brain settle, other parts of the brain light up. We need to remember that neurons that fire generally wire together. So we have learned to react situations. We have learned to bring our own emotions into a situation, to transfer what we feel onto other people, to blame the outside world for everything that is happening to us, and to get very much caught into this kind of battle, which is definitely not at all conducive to well-being. So psychological well-being, in psychological well-being and working with mindfulness, we learn to become responsible and we learn to become compassionate and kind to self and to others, to calm and to work with the self, to understand the self in a deeper way.
I could make a short comment about the photo. Lindy, συνέχισε, ναι, συγγνώμη.
Go ahead, Costa.
A short comment. Αυτό το οποίο βλέπουμε στη φωτογραφία, το λέω για τους τηλεθεατές μας, είναι μια απεικονιστική μέθοδος στην ιατρική, η οποία λέγεται PET scan. Είναι δηλαδή αξονική τομογραφία εκπομπής ποζιτρονίων, μέσω της οποίας αυτό το οποίο κάνει ο γιατρός ή οποιοσδήποτε επιστήμονας που ασχολείται είναι να βλέπει τον μεταβολισμό της γλυκόζης και ουσιαστικά να βλέπει ποιες περιοχές του εγκεφάλου είναι ενεργές. Also, a very short comment about the second part of the picture. In this place here we can see that very active is the occipital lobe. Δηλαδή βλέπουμε εδώ ότι είναι πάρα πολύ ενεργός ο ηνιακός λόβος του εγκεφάλου, όπου βρίσκεται το κέντρο της όρασης. And obviously here, in this brain, I think that the person who is being studied, he has closed his eyes. Mm-hmm. Because there's not this part of brain, the occipital lobe is inactive in such a case. Δηλαδή, πιθανόν ο άνθρωπος έχει κλειστά τα μάτια του, γι' αυτό και βλέπετε ότι εδώ η περιοχή αυτή εδώ του ηνιακού λοβού δεν είναι τόσο ενεργή τη συγκεκριμένη στιγμή. Δηλαδή, φανταστείτε ότι σαν διαδικασία, σαν απεικονιστική μέθοδο στην ιατρική, το PET scan πραγματικά έχει προσφέρει πάρα πολλά. Linda, we have many questions. I also have many questions.
Yes.
So let's begin from the end, from the last questions.
Okay, I will try and answer them all.
Of course. But you have made all of us to relax.
That's very good. At least
for me now, it would be a very good chance to have a nap here, to have some rest. Δηλαδή, ακόμη και να κοιμηθούμε και να χαλαρώσουμε, νομίζω ότι είναι κάτι πάρα πολύ όμορφο το σημερινό. And what I really enjoyed was the gong.
Yes, the gong is a very special gong. It's the Tibetan bowl that works in a very nice way.
Are there gong therapies?
Yes, there are. There are gong therapies where the therapist places the gong they place different bowls, actually. There are different sized bowls that have different sounds. And the different sounds relates to the different parts of the body. The bowls are placed on the body, and then through the sound is very healing and brings the body into a balance.
What this gong reminds me is of a song of Pink Floyd, το High Hopes. Για όσους ακούτε Pink Floyd, είναι ένα καταπληκτικό τραγούδι, το High Hopes, όπου στο τέλος μάλιστα ο David Gilmour, που είναι από τα πιο προβεβλημένα στελέχη των Pink Floyd, κάνει ένα φοβερό solo. Δηλαδή σας το συνιστώ, βάλτε το στο YouTube να το ακούσετε, και είναι χαρακτηριστικό ότι ξεκινά με gong. Είναι ένα τραγούδι το οποίο εγώ θα το έλεγα κατά κάποιον τρόπο ιεροτελεστία. So, let's go to our viewers. Athena is asking, do you think that mindfulness is a good therapy for bereavement? Δηλαδή, αν το mindfulness είναι μια καλή θεραπεία για το πένθος.
For grief.
For grieving.
For grieving, absolutely. Definitely, because to a certain extent, the problem with grief is that we definitely need to realize and allow ourselves the grieving process. In most cases, we hurry in order to overcome something that we have been through, or we take too long through the grieving process. Mindfulness helps us to get in touch with the grief that we are feeling, but also allows us to expand. It gives us that expansion, and it is that expansion that supports the grief that we are experiencing.
Which are the stages of grief? We speak about the acceptance.
Yes,
how we can manage to get on with it.
There are different stages in grief, which I don't really want to go into right now because it is not so important for wandering. I don't want to wander off at this moment into that and to bring other people that, let's say, might want to ask other questions. I will be carrying on about grief, and I need to allow the flow of energy to go through. So I'm not going to go into the stages of them, but mindfulness definitely does help. And it is very, there are many Zen, let's say, centers around the world that they embrace people from different religions to follow. And it is very good to become part of a community that will then support as well the practice of Zen. And usually the practice of mindfulness is done on a daily basis. Of course, it is important for somebody who is going through grief to go to a grief counselor as well in order to be helped through the process, because it's not something that they can go through themselves. One needs support. One definitely needs support.
A personal question that I have is, can mindfulness be practiced on a face-to-face session or in a group therapy? Which would be the best procedure for this?
There are I would say that it is something that can be done in both. I wouldn't say that there is any better or worse situation. Mindfulness is mindfulness. So whether you are in a group, it is much more powerful, usually in a group. But then when two people are practicing, according to the person who is actually a practitioner, that raises the vibration and the consciousness level of the person that is within. This is why we say that coming into contact with somebody, for example, like the Dalai Lama, is an incredible experience. I mean, I have met the Dalai Lama when I was in the United Kingdom, and it was the most incredible experience that just floods one's senses and feels completely different. It's a raised, compassionate idea. It's tremendous. It's like going to the bottom of the beautiful, still lake and emerging completely into it, submerging.
One more question from Amelie. She's on a dance fitness center, possibly.
Yes.
She combines mindfulness practicing on Pilates sessions.
Yes.
And then the people feel happy.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So we can combine a mild, μια μέτρια δηλαδή, physical activity with mindfulness.
Of course, there is mindfulness can be in, I mean, we become mindful when we say that it becomes it becomes part of our life. It's not a technique only, it is a way of living. Then we mindfully walk, we mindfully wash the dishes, we mindfully do Pilates, we stop and we incorporate mindfulness in whatever we're doing. If we're in the classroom, it is absolutely highly beneficial to students to just stop and to ask them to practice mindfulness. The problem there is that usually if one is practicing mindfulness in a school, then the entire school needs to actually practice mindfulness so that everybody gets into the mode of mindfulness and everybody becomes a practitioner of it. Therefore, it becomes a part of the life. So even if one is doing gymnastics, let's say, or whatever, in the middle of theater, I use it when I'm in theater, and I can see that we are all getting too involved in what we're doing in terms of the play, and then we just stop. I will ring a bell, and everybody just stops, and we focus on breathing. And that, for that moment, is what releases the tension. And you can sense and feel, if you are trained, you know exactly when there is a shift in the actual energy.
Maria
relaxes more.
Maria is saying that mindfulness is present to ourselves, possibly anywhere, anytime. Eleni, in addition, mindfulness is used for anorexia. You have already answered in that question.
Yes.
Maria is speaking about patience, love, power, and happy moments.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that when you close your eyes, you can think of nothing? Absolutely, just have your eyes closed.
I do not know of anybody that thinks of nothing, but one can close one's eyes and focus on the breath or focus on the word of nothing. It is something that mindfulness as well is being a practice. There are no fast, I mean, one follows, let's say, the way in which mindfulness is done. But from then and onwards, if somebody is able to, eventually what I know, and I've been practicing for a very long time, is that, and I practice every morning for approximately an hour or a half an hour if I have too many things to do, but a half an hour is for sure. The way in which we create the scenarios in our mind, what happens is that there are always thoughts in the mind. The mind is, the trainers of mindfulness talk about the monkey mind, because it's like a monkey that swings from tree to tree. The thought is there, and then what happens is we catch on to the thought and we follow the thought, and we create another scenario and another scenario, and we become entangled in this web of additional thoughts and scenarios and all sorts of different things. This is what the mind does, and the idea is not to try and stop the mind from doing it. The idea is that you just focus on your breath, or focus on a mantra. The Zen practitioners, they focus on a particular mantra. So you can say something very short. It can be something from one's religion, from one's religious background. It can be the word love, as I said, or the word peace, or the word gratitude, and then just focusing on that one word allows the thoughts to do their thing. Eventually, after practice, it's like playing tennis. We need to practice. So mindfulness, of course, needs to be learned. And even if somebody does the practice over 8 weeks and learns how to do mindfulness, one needs to carry on practicing. Because the moment that you stop, you lose that connection.
Στην φίλη Νικόλ που ρωτάει ποια άλλη διαφορά παρατηρείται στον εγκέφαλο εκτός από τα κλειστά μάτια που υπόθηκε πριν, θα μου επιτρέψετε να πάω πίσω ξανά στην παρουσίαση της συναδέλφου για να δούμε ξανά τη φωτογραφία.
Ναι.
Να πω στη φίλη ότι ακόμη και αυτές εδώ οι περιοχές του αριστερού ημισφαιρίου, εδώ βλέπουμε, η περιοχή αυτή λέγεται εκεί συνειρμικός φλοιός. Είναι μια περιοχή η οποία κατά κανόνα λειτουργεί και στη σκέψη και έχει να κάνει και με την επεξεργασία εικόνων, συναισθημάτων, σκέψεων. Οπότε προφανώς αυτός ο άνθρωπος ίσως έχει περάσει μια κατάσταση αρκετά μεγάλης ηρεμίας, γι' αυτό και βλέπετε ότι στην δεξιά φωτογραφία η περιοχή αυτή φαίνεται ότι είναι λιγότερο δραστηρή. Ίσως αν υπάρχει κάποιος γιατρός ανάμεσα στους τηλεθεατές μας θα μπορούσε να μας πει πολύ περισσότερα. Εδώ να σας πω ότι στο αριστερό ημισφαίριο, στην περιοχή περίπου του αυτιού, χωροταξικά, είναι και οι περιοχές Μπροκά και Βέρνικε, όπου εδράζεται το κέντρο του λόγου και της αναλυτικής σκέψης. Έτσι, ο εγκέφαλος είναι μία ολότητα, αλλά υπάρχουν και κάποιες περιοχές οι οποίες είναι αρκετά πιο εξειδικευμένες σε μερικές λειτουργίες. Ελπίζω να απήντησα σωστά στην φίλη. Ξαναλέω, αν υπάρχει κάποιος γιατρός που μπορεί να μας γράψει κάτι, φυσικά και θα το καταθέσουμε. Λοιπόν,
I wanted to mention, sorry Costa, I just wanted to mention that there have been a lot of studies on meditators in the East. And for example, trait mindfulness, there is a resting activity in the amygdala and in the medial prefrontal and parietal brain areas that are associated with self-referential processing. And there are studies that show this. They are studies that, of course, the problem always with studies, really, I would like to encourage the students that might be following what we're doing right now at the moment, that I do teach qualitative research methodology at New York College. I think it's really important for the students that are doing positive psychology and other students that may be listening to us to really investigate the idea of looking at some mindfulness-based techniques and looking at possibly doing research on it, because there is a lot of research that is there. And the problem sometimes that we face with the inability to do, let's say, more PET scanning is the money that's involved, because we need funding for it. You know, there is always an interest to study mindfulness, because we have records from actual mindfulness practitioners, but people who are sators, let's say, or who are Zen masters, who have got an incredible ability to keep into this inner stillness. So it is a fascinating subject, and it is a very interesting subject, over and beyond what we can do in our everyday life by practicing mindfulness.
Adriana she's feeling relief.
Good.
Excuse me. Demosthenes is feeling calmness. Amelie also, she thinks that her body needs love, and I think that all of us, we have to love our body. You know, the body is like an όχημα. As
like a vehicle. Of course. We take the body for granted many, many times. I mean, you know, how many times have you actually stopped to say thank you to your feet? If you think about the weight that the foot carries and the way that we, you know, squash feet into shoes, becoming mindful, one becomes more aware of the need to truly love the body and to give that love to self. It is extremely important.
The whole procedure of mindfulness reminds me of praying, even in the Greek Orthodox Church, where we say that close your eyes, just concentrate on this particular, on the prayer and nowhere else.
It's interesting that you say that, Costa. I did my final dissertation in the application of ancient Greek myth and music in personal, professional, and transpersonal development. So I had the CD of Michalis Karavasilis, who is a very well-known researcher in ancient Greek music. I had his music playing, and I was reading to my participants, because it was a research PhD. I was reading the hymn of Persephone and Demeter that was written by Homer. Now, the interesting aspect to this whole thing is that I did not use mindfulness because I didn't feel that it was appropriate to bring an Eastern practice into my research. So I created what I called nepsychia, which was from the nipsis, which is the watchfulness in the Orthodox faith, and the hesychia, which is that deep silence that is practiced by the Orthodox religion. So, you know, this is, even if we are in contemplation, holding, let's say, that into that deep space of prayer. Prayer is another form of mindfulness, if we have to be honest. I mean, we are just focusing on certain words, let's say, or the images. One can focus on the image of a saint, let's say, if one is so inclined, or the idea, let's say. That is why the idea of, let's say, Buddha as a figure who is not a religious figure for somebody who is a Christian, let's say, but we have a lot of Christians in the Zen, in the Zendos. We have Christian priests who have become part of the Zen tradition. So this is wonderful, I think, because it brings us all together, and we don't have the separateness either. And it is the idea that whether it is prayer or whether it is just plain Zen practice for somebody who is not religious, there it brings us together. Don't forget that we have 2 questions, Costa, as well, to ask our listeners.
Από εκεί για τους φίλους ότι αυτό στο οποίο αναφερθήκαμε είναι και η πρακτική όπου υπάρχει στην Ορθόδοξη Εκκλησία με την προσευχή, ειδικά με την καρδιακή προσευχή, όπου ο πιστός ο οποίος προσεύχεται επαναλαμβάνει τη λεγόμενη ευχή του Ιησού, δηλαδή το Κύριε Ιησού Χριστέ ελέησόν με, και επικεντρώνεται μόνο σε αυτό. Και αν διαβάσετε πατέρες της Εκκλησίας θα δείτε ότι είναι μια τεχνική η οποία μοιάζει αρκετά. Δεν είμαι ειδικός πάνω στο θέμα, μην παρεξηγηθώ, απλά όσο το καταθέτω σαν στοιχείο.
Of course.
Λοιπόν, Nicole is asking, Nicole is saying that she had a very difficult day, and now with your help, I have accepted everything, and she's also feeling better.
Yes.
So I think that our workshop is a success.
That's excellent.
One more question: fasting and mindfulness in νηστεία.
The two of them, whether they suit one another. Whether they can be done together. Fasting is something that, again, is a very personal aspect in terms of, does it improve? It does improve, let's say, if we want to put it that way. The actual practice of mindfulness is not usually done with a completely empty stomach, but it is not usually done as well with a full stomach. So perhaps a cup of tea.
Να πω εδώ για τους φίλους μας, ότι ο Επίκουρος, ο αρχαίος φιλόσοφος, όταν μιλούσε περί ειδονών, είχε δύο ειδονές. Υπήρχαν οι καταστηματικές ειδονές, όπου σημαίνει ότι τρώω μέχρι το σημείο να μην πεινάω πλέον. Και υπάρχουν και οι κατακίνηση ειδονές, όπου είναι τρώω και ξανατρώω. Έτσι, δηλαδή τρώμε όσο χρειάζεται. Και ο Γαληνός ακόμη μιλούσε για ασύμμετρες τροφές. Θυμάμαι τα χρόνια μου, τα παλαιότερα, όταν δούλευα πάνω στον Γαληνό για τον Ιπποκράτη, που είχα ασχοληθεί με το θέμα και μου το θύμισε η Lindy αυτή τη στιγμή. Λοιπόν, η Μαρία, value change in our life and contact with our emotions. This is what comes into her mind from mindfulness.
Yes.
Athena is feeling very relaxed. And she also wants to sleep.
Good.
That's what we said before. Athena, σε ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. Χαλαρώσαμε αρκετά, νομίζω. Η Αμελή επίσης ξανά μας γράφει she's feeling vivid and fresh and calmness. Ανδριάννα, calm, security, happiness, trust, sense of freedom, and she's also speaking about prey. Maria, relaxed, beauty and trust. Ο Ιωάννης is asking, how can we combine mindfulness with relaxing physical activity?
What is relaxing physical activity? I would presume taking a walk. So I would say that while I'm walking, I know that I'm walking. I repeat to myself, I am walking. I am walking. Walking meditation, Zen does walking meditation, which is a slow process of being fully contained and walking leisurely. Then I would also say that I would include in the walking that is in that way, very contained, stopping and then just looking at whatever is in front of me. So there is a lot of healing work that is done. And in fact, one of our students I'm overseeing one of our students who is doing an absolutely excellent master PhD on the value of going into nature and being mindful in nature. This is excellent. So one there can make contact with the wind, for example, and just feel the wind. Contact the wind, feel the wind as the breeze is blowing over your face. Look up at the cloud, make that contact with the cloud. Just being present in nature, sitting on the ground, touching the ground, doing exercises, because that is leisurely exercise as well, and feeling the muscles in your body, coming into contact with the muscles in the body. So it's really becoming very mindful about exactly what you are doing.
Dimitra is asking if there are some circumstances in our life where mindfulness may not be so effective?
A very good question. Thank you. Yes, it is sometimes. It could be in a situation where somebody, let's say, is not psychologically well and maybe will have some kind of an experience from going into such deep stillness and deep silence. Mindfulness, normally speaking, we have not had any reports of anything that has gone wrong with somebody doing mindfulness, not at all. However, I would say that if somebody does not feel well when doing mindfulness and does not feel the benefits coming from it, that perhaps they should seek out a mindfulness teacher and get a close, get some expert advice on it, because we always need to be aware of this. Sometimes it is quite possible that somebody does not feel okay because of some other problem. But mindfulness in general has never, ever, there has never been anything that has actually been the downside of mindfulness practice. It's always in a positive light.
In case we have somebody who suffers from depression or anxiety, yes. He should go profoundly to his doctor or his clinical psychologist, and then mindfulness is the next step, or it can take place at the same time?
Of course it can take place at the same time, especially with somebody who is depressed or anxious, because basically we're just focusing on the breath. It is in some specific cases which could be, let's say, that the person doesn't feel well. I've had people that have actually explained to me that they did not feel good when they did some mindfulness exercise. That is a special case that needs, we need further information. We cannot just be irresponsible and say, it doesn't matter. But usually, with people that who are depressed and anxious, it works very well.
Εγώ το ερώτημα ήταν αν σε ανθρώπους οι οποίοι υποφέρουν από κάποιο είδους κατάθλιψη ενδεχομένως, αν μπορεί να εφαρμοστεί σαν μέθοδο ή αν πρέπει να εφαρμοστεί μετά, και αυτό το οποίο μας απήντησε η συγγήτριά μας είναι ότι μπορεί και την ίδια στιγμή να γίνει παράλληλα, βέβαια με τη συμβολή του ειδικού, του ψυχιάτρου ή του κλινικού ψυχολόγου, ο οποίος θα ασχοληθεί. Nostalgia, calmness, from Nicole and Andriana. Georgia also is speaking about calmness. And I think that we have many positive emotions from today's workshop. It's not actually a lecture, it's a workshop where all of us we have taken part. So you said... you said remaining to present. Is this difficult to remain to present?
In remaining in the present, it's something that we learn, Costa. Whenever we, if doing mindfulness, the only, let's say, well, sometimes it can be, but it depends on what perspective you're looking at it from. I, who practice mindfulness, can no longer multitask. I have to say that I cannot multitask, but apparently it's a good thing if I cannot multitask, because what's been happening, well, big companies like Google, etc., have got a special mindfulness room for their employees. And the idea of being a multitasker is no longer the in thing. It is looked at as not being so efficient, because if I'm answering the telephone and I'm busy writing something on the computer, the amount of mistakes that I probably will make, either from listening to who is on the telephone or what I'm doing with the computer or paying somebody at that moment, my attention is divided between 3, 4, or 5 different things. So research has shown that people who do multitask, they tend to make mistakes. Somebody who is fully involved in something brings a certain amount of presence into a space. they are able to do their work in as efficient a way as possible, not allowing for mistakes. Of course, if we want to, it can become, you know, a little bit difficult. One has to stop and start doing something else. This is one of the, you know, it depends on if we're running through life all the time. We never have time to stop and smell the roses. And really, the way that we are living in today's world, in terms of, I think that at this moment in time, we have all, the whole world has been given the opportunity to stop and to pay attention a little bit more to the self, and to pay attention to life and to honor life, or to be aware of how fragile life is. It's like a little thread that at any moment can snap. So this makes us far more aware, let's say, at this moment in time, of how beneficial mindfulness exercises can be.
Speaking about the present, you remind me of Aristotle and his account of time, where he says that time is a continuum, δηλαδή έλεγε ότι ο χρόνος είναι ένα συνεχές στην πραγματικότητα, where our mind makes ideal intersection into the time flow. These intersections are called nin, είναι το τώρα. And his commentators, just like John Philoponus, they were saying that this nin is ακαριέων, is instant. Δηλαδή φανταστείτε ότι παίρνετε τη χρονική ροή, εσείς το αντιλαμβάνεστε σαν χρόνο, τον χρόνο να ρέει συνέχεια, και απλά αποφασίζετε με το νου σας ότι κάνετε μία ιδεώδη τομή στη ροή του χρόνου, αλλά μέχρι να το σκεφτείτε, αυτό έχει περάσει. Είναι ήδη στο παρελθόν.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Είναι πολύ δύσκολο να επικεντρωθείς στο τώρα. Δηλαδή, εγώ νομίζω ότι ακόμη και σε μια ευτυχισμένη στιγμή πολλές φορές δεν μπορούμε να επικεντρωθούμε. We miss our happiness. We miss the moments.
We do miss those
We
moments.
always expect something more to happen.
Absolutely. Or we get,
είναι πολύ σημαντικό αυτό. Γιατί ακόμη και σήμερα, if you say that I'm happy today, then you're going to wonder what is going to happen tomorrow.
Exactly. And then
we miss the time.
Exactly. You don't experience that happiness in its totality. If you think about it, little children are very much in the moment. Little children are not thinking about what they need to do later on. Little children just are fully present, completely. So I think that, you know, if I may bring in that saying in the Bible, be like little children to enter the supposed kingdom of heaven, it is a sentence, let's say, that I take to fully mean that if we are able to become fully present, we appreciate and understand things at a much different level. We will experience the true meaning, let's say, of our existence as human beings, and hopefully we will be able to understand how we should evolve, because I think that evolution is a very important aspect of our experience as human beings. We cannot keep on making the same mistakes. We need to move on. We need to heal.
So we have to make mistakes, but not the same mistakes.
Not the same mistakes. And
να κάνουμε λάθη, απλά να μην κάνουμε τα ίδια λάθη.
Of course. And we also need to heal our wounds. Countries need to heal their wounds. It is not only, you know, from a personal point of view, it is it is organizational, it is national. There are many different wounds. Just as we treat ourselves, or we treat somebody who has wounded aspects of the self, this needs to be done as well on a global level. So there is much work to be done, and coming into present time assists us to come to that point of evolution and evolving as a human race, which I think is being given to us as an opportunity right now. Things do need to change. Our whole, perception of life and our attitude in general.
Talk about some health benefits of mindfulness, and what comes into my mind is hypertension, for example. We have to lower our pulses.
It lowers blood pressure. It lowers, exactly. It allows us as well.
Also in Stoic philosophy.
Very much close to, yes, exactly. I think that
also in Stoic philosophy.
Go on.
Please, in Stoic philosophy, we have apathia, where human can isolate himself for any harmful distraction. Δηλαδή, το πω και για τους φίλους ότι στη στοική φιλοσοφία υπάρχει και η απάθεια, όπου ο άνθρωπος ουσιαστικά προσπαθεί να μένει απαθής, αλφα-στερητικό και πάθος, από οποιαδήποτε εξωτερική επιρροή. Έτσι επιτυγχάνει και φτάνει και σε ένα στάδιο που πλέον είναι ήρεμος. Από εκεί, στοικούς, να το πω για τους φίλους, στοικοί λέγονταν επειδή διδασκόντουσαν σε μία στοά. Έτσι, και από εκεί έχει βγει και η λέξη στοικότητα. Η στοά γράφεται με όμικρον, ο στοικός φιλόσοφος γράφεται με ωμέγα και μπορείτε να δείτε τον Χρήσιπο, τον Ζήνονα, τον Κιτιέα, που ήταν πολύ μεγάλες προσωπικότητες. Also, I would like to ask you about mindfulness and palliative care, because you spoke about people who suffer from pain. And what comes into my mind is patients suffering from cancer.
Absolutely. That is the main, let's say, field that John Kabat-Zinn worked with in terms of Massachusetts and the mindfulness-based stress reduction, because basically it is reducing the stress that patients have and they move into the pain. So moving into the pain and accepting, let's say, the pain as it is, it shifts and changes. So there is a very powerful aspect. And I might add here that in the NHS, in England, the public health system, they do use mindfulness, and they have started bringing mindfulness in, as is mindfulness taught at schools. It is being taught, on a regular basis within the school, because it is found that children and people who are suffering in hospitals, that it is extremely beneficial. So I think it's just a matter of time and, coming to the point, let's say, of we find so many similarities. I wanted to go back to what you were talking about before with the Stoics. The idea that Siddhartha Gautama believed that every person is an enlightened being. To a certain extent, it does remind me of Platona with his ideas. And the idea that we have all these experiences, we know all these things, and we just remember through our life what it is. So somewhere along the line, we are trying to get into contact through mindfulness with the actual self, the real self. And it is the idea of connecting with the real self that subsides everything else. It is not me that has to stop thinking about something, but that the body itself, and I think here it's really important to say that the body has an internal healer. The body has its own, either way, we know that recently in neuroscience, there is a whole lot of research going on with homeostatic plasticity. Homeostatic plasticity meaning that the body is going into a natural homeostasis, and the brain, which has this amount of plasticity, what we know is that we can change the way in which we think about things. We know that in general. So this is an important aspect as well, as far as our health is concerned. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Η Όλγα αναφέρεται επίσης ζητά να πούμε ξανά δύο λόγια για το mindfulness και την προσευχή. Απλά να πω και στην όλη ότι είναι απλά, δεν είμαι ειδικός πάνω στον τομέα, μην παρεξηγηθώ, απλά φαίνεται ότι και στις δύο περιπτώσεις πρέπει να επικεντρωθείς πάνω σε κάτι.
Mm-hmm.
Έτσι, ας πούμε, στην ευχή του Ιησού επικεντρώνεσαι πάνω στην ευχή, αυτό τουλάχιστον μας λέει η Εκκλησία μας.
Basically what Zen Buddhism, let's say, at the moment that Zen practitioners, they usually use certain chanting. So Zen practice is not just in seated meditation, but they are also chanting some specific, like the 4 great vows. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to save them all. However inexhaustible delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it. It's not meant in a religious aspect, it is meant into an aspect of enlightenment. So as in English, for example, we would say, Lord God, have mercy on me. I think you have you know the Greek translation of that. Exactly. So you can repeat that within you, and you can sing it as well, because sometimes in Zen sittings, or in most Zen sittings, you also have somebody singing. So you are allowing that voice and that song to enter into you, and it just enters and you feel it. So just as, this is why I think that as well in the Orthodox faith, the Mass is usually sung. So it is the singing of it, even though people not necessarily understand each word of it, they are listening to it, and it is listening to basically this that touches the heart or touches the inner being.
Mindfulness is, as I can understand, is a way of life. It's not an easy way. Exactly. I think it's difficult not to have distractions. So
don't judge it. Let's try not to practice judgment. Let's just say that it is a practice of life.
But we need an isolation. We need to remain alone even for some minutes in our life, just to close our eyes, even for 5 or 10 minutes.
Absolutely, but don't be assured that one has to do it alone. I can do it on the bus. I very often, when there was a need for me to come downtown and I was taking the metro, it is my most favorite thing to do on the metro. Despite all the noise, etc., I am in a state of mindfulness, and it actually is a very nice state to be in. So we can do it in the middle of a crowd of people.
Άρα να πούμε για τους φίλους ότι είναι μια διαδικασία που μπορείτε να κάνετε κάθε μέρα στη ζωή σας και είναι σίγουρα το οποίο
κάθε μέρα, πολλές φορές την ημέρα. Many times during the day. So Costa, on our question that we wanted to ask everybody, the 2 questions that I sent to you, whether they felt a difference. So what I would like our listeners to basically say is that from the moment that they wrote down their stressors at the very beginning of this workshop seminar, have they found some relief from those stressors? And were they able to do the exercise of mindfulness? So I think those are the 2 questions basically that we're asking.
Αν θέλετε, γράψτε και στο chat οτιδήποτε πάνω σε αυτό το θέμα που ρώτησε η κυρία McMullin. Έχουμε μερικά λεπτάκια ακόμη. Στο μεσοδιάστημα, I would like to ask you, which would be your advice for somebody who has not enough time to remain calm within the day because of his distraction? Even he may not have enough family time, so he gets back into home and he has to play with his children, to see his wife, her husband, or anything else.
To be mindful, to be fully mindful when you are playing with your children, to be fully involved in playing with your children, to be fully involved in speaking to your wife. rather than to multitask and speak on the telephone at the same time or do things for the office at the same time. To, when you prepare your cup of coffee, prepare your cup of coffee. Try not to think about other things at that moment. Just put all your attention there. If it works, if you think about something else, bring your attention back to the kettle, back to the coffee. When I eat, I eat. I try to remain focused on the food that I'm eating. And slowly I will become much more connected, believe it or not, with what I'm doing on an everyday basis, Costa. And then this will allow you at times to stop. And whether it is, even if you walk, if you get up and you walk around, a lot of us are working a lot on the computer at the moment. So even just getting up at that moment, walking to your window, looking outside and focusing on your breath for 2-3 minutes, those 2-3 minutes will become 5 minutes. Where there is a will, there's a way. As we do exercise, it is important as well. For example, I wake up in the morning, I do 20 minutes of exercise, and I do immediately my sitting. And then I start my day. So one can find that time at some point in time during the day.
I have the first answer from Amelie. She's saying that regarding your first question, now I do not see it as a problem. On the contrary, I'm eager to face it. As for the second question, yes, I can practice it.
Wonderful.
Πάρα πολύ ωραία, Αμπέλη. Σε ευχαριστούμε. Περιμένουμε και τους υπόλοιπους φίλους να απαντήσουν. You also reminded me of Epictetus, the philosopher, the Stoic philosopher, who was saying that τα ράτη τους ανθρώπους, ούτε πράγματα, αλλά τα περιόντα πράγματα δόγματα. Δηλαδή ότι δεν μας ταράζουν οι καταστάσεις, τα πράγματα, αλλά οι αντιλήψεις που διαμορφώνουμε.
Absolutely.
You said that the thought of emotion is damaging, not the emotion itself.
Exactly.
So we have to face our emotions possibly to get engaged with our emotions, to cry, to laugh, or anything else.
Of course.
Λένε ότι οι άντρες δεν κλαίνε. Οι άντρες πρώτοι κλαίνε.
Today in my psychology class, I was talking exactly about that which you just said. And I said, look at how, unfortunately, because we were talking about masculine and feminine and whether the gender differences. And I was actually saying, I mentioned that and I said, you know, the older generation, unfortunately, used to say, men don't cry. But men definitely need to come into contact with their more feminine aspect. Because we all have, and women have to come into contact with their masculine aspect. We need to meet each other halfway. That is for sure. It's really important.
Το επίσης αναφέρει relief is actually of one of the words I can write. And Andriana, she's saying that we have to pray every day. With calmness, wherever we are, which is actually a kind of mindfulness. And I have to say here that in ancient Greek and also in Byzantine philosophy, we had adefpeia. This means that when you do something good, then good is coming back to you. Mm-hmm. So if it's correct, I'm not a psychologist, but when we have good emotions, positive emotions, even in bad instances, then good is going to come back into us.
Everything changes if we are able to feel good. Everything changes, and we also make others around us feel good when we are feeling good.
Να πω και κάτι, όχι σαν επιστήμονα αυτή τη στιγμή, αλλά σαν Κώστας θα το πω, ότι όλοι θα το έχουμε ζήσει στη ζωή μας, πως όταν κάνουμε άσχημα συναισθήματα, μόνο άσχημες σκέψεις, άσχημα αποτελέσματα έρχονται. Οπότε, γιατί να μπορέσουμε λιγάκι να το αλλάξουμε, να σκεφτούμε λίγο πιο θετικά. Και αν θέλετε, και το μυαλό σκέφτεται πιο καθαρά σε τέτοιες καταστάσεις. Οπότε και η λογική μας μπορεί να λειτουργήσει πολύ πιο καλά.
It's called shifting perception.
Mm-hmm.
To shift our perception to how we look at things.
Πάρα πολύ ωραία. So, I think that we have, it's almost 8 o'clock.
Wonderful.
Lindy, I would like to thank you very much. This was very relaxing, a very calm session.
It was very enjoyable.
Να ευχαριστήσουμε πάρα πολύ την καλή συνάδελφο από το New York College για αυτά τα οποία μας είπε, και νομίζω ότι σήμερα ήταν ένα πάρα πολύ διαφορετικό σεμινάριο. Ήταν workshop στην πραγματικότητα, γιατί βλέπετε ότι η εισηγήτρια μας κατάφερε να μας βάλει όλους μέσα σε αυτή τη διαδικασία. Εγώ εντάξει, δεν μπόρεσα να μπω εντελώς όσο θα ήθελα, καθώς έχουμε τα διαδικαστικά του σεμινάριου, αλλά πιστεύω ότι είναι κάτι το οποίο βοηθά πάρα πολύ, και όπως το έχω ξαναπεί και σε προηγούμενη μετάδοσή μας, να ακούτε τους ειδικούς. Προκειμένου έχουμε πάρα πολύ καλή έγκριτη ψυχολόγο, η οποία στον τομέα της είναι εξαιρετική, επιβλέπει και διδακτορικά στο New York College, σε συνεργασία με το Πανεπιστήμιο του Bolton, άρα είναι μια έγκριτη επιστήμον. Γι' αυτό σε κάθε τι να ακούμε τον ειδικό. Σε ό,τι έχει να κάνει με ψυχολογία θα ακούσουμε τον ψυχολόγο. Lindy, I'd like to thank you very much.
Thank you, Costa.
For this session. Να πω για τους φίλους τηλεθεατές ότι το ραντεβού μας ανανεώνεται για την προσεχή Παρασκευή 19 του μηνός. Θα έχουμε ένα πάρα πολύ ωραίο σεμινάριο, το οποίο και αυτό εντάσσεται στο πλαίσιο του wellness καφέ, το καφέ της ευεξίας. Οπότε πάρτε το καφεδάκι σας, τη σοκολάτα σας, κρύο θα έχει. Ποιος θα είναι έξω εκείνη την ώρα, έτσι. Καθίστε, άραξε στον υπολογιστή σας. Το θέμα το οποίο θα έχουμε είναι διαχείριση και αντιμετώπιση διατροφικών διαταραχών. Θα έχουμε τον κύριο Βαγγέλη Ζουμπανέα, ο οποίος είναι διευθυντής του Κέντρου Εκπαίδευσης και Αντιμετώπισης Διατροφικών Διαταραχών, και επίσης τον κύριο Βασίλειο Κατσίλα, υποψήφιο διδάκτορα και επίσης διατροφολόγο και διαιτολόγο από αυτό του ΤΕΙ Θεσσαλονίκης. Θα είναι μια πάρα πολύ ωραία συζήτηση, και νομίζω ότι κλείνει μια πάρα πολύ ωραία σειρά ομιλιών. Έχουμε και την άλλη εβδομάδα, όπου θα κλείσουμε πλέον για αυτόν το μήνα το Wellness Café. Να πω τώρα εδώ για όσους ενδιαφέρονται για τη βεβαίωση, θέλω θα γράψω στο chat αυτή τη στιγμή το σημείο στο οποίο πρέπει να μπείτε για να βάλετε να καταχωρήσετε τα στοιχεία σας, προκειμένου να πάρετε τη βεβαίως παρακολούθηση. Παρακαλούμε να ακολουθήσετε όλες τις οδηγίες. Εγώ θα ήθελα και από εδώ να ευχαριστήσω πάρα πολύ θερμά την Φιλίτσα Αρβανίτη, event manager του κολεγίου, η οποία φτιάχνει αυτά τα πάρα πολύ όμορφα γραφικά και την ιστοσελίδα την οποία παρακολουθείτε, καθώς και όλους τους συναδέλφους οι οποίοι ασχολούνται, σας στέλνουν τις βεβαιώσεις σας, και να ξέρετε ότι χρειάζεται μια αρκετά μεγάλη υποδομή, και είναι πραγματικά χαρά όλων μας όσοι ασχολούμαστε με το κομμάτι του καφέ, είτε είναι science cafe, είτε wellness cafe. Είναι μεγάλη χαρά να σας έχουμε στη συντροφιά μας.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful idea, Costa, a wonderful idea, the Wellness Cafe. And thank you to everybody for organizing and behind the scenes, because it's always without you guys that nothing would be done.
Ακριβώς. Και
very appreciative of that.
Είναι τεράστια προσπάθεια που γίνεται ακριβώς για να ωφελήσουμε τους ανθρώπους οι οποίοι μας παρακολουθούν, και βέβαια να πω ότι αυτό θα συνεχιστεί και τους επόμενους μήνες. Λοιπόν, προσπαθώ τώρα εδώ, έχει κολλήσει το δεύτερο λάπτοπ που έχω μαζί μου.
Δεν λειτουργεί. At least we managed, Costa, with all the snow. I'm sure that a lot of people don't have electricity, but at least the ones that managed to come on, that's a big thing. And I think it will be on YouTube. Will it not be available on YouTube?
Θα είναι διαθέσιμο στο YouTube. Ναι, ήταν ένα από αυτά τα οποία ήθελα να πω. Λοιπόν, για τις βεβαιώσεις, όσοι είστε στο chat, θα ανεβείτε λίγο προς το πάνω και θα βρείτε και το site μας. Λοιπόν, εγώ να ευχαριστήσω και την Λίντα, ευχαριστήσω και όλους εσάς που μείνατε μαζί μας, να προσέχετε, όπως λέμε κάθε φορά, και προσπαθήστε τουλάχιστον να βελτιώσετε τη ζωή σας μέσω, όπως και όλοι μας, έτσι, μέσω αυτών των μικρών πρακτικών συμβουλών που ακούσαμε σήμερα.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
And mindful.
And stay positive also.
Absolutely.
Λοιπόν, καλό βράδυ σε όλους.